So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money. We would save half of our budget.
Okay.
And we're going to send, but if they want to do that.
Because you do lose control when you go low.
We've lost control. We're number 40. We're last on the list. We're the worst there is, and we spend more money than.
It's easy for them to tell it was about tea and being taxed, when really it was about keeping our ancestors on the plantation. That is the ugly, dark history of 4th of July. There were a lot of enslaved people that were forced to celebrate the independence and freedom of their enslavers while they were withholding the information of them being freed themselves. To me, that is something that is just so like evil, demonic, devil-like, you know? It's funny that while the British Empire was offering freedom to the American, you know what I'm saying, enslaved people, the enslaved Africans that was in the Americas, while also holding their own colonies in the Bahamas and Jamaica and literally having slaves. So what you see with the dark history of Juneteenth and of July 4th, Black people's bodies has always been used as fungible objects and tools to push forward civil society or push forward white America in whatever way they see fit. Whether it's demonizing Black people as being bad, dumb, and little, pieces of property, or, painting us as these inspirational, empowered vessels that can teach you why and how America is so great.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now.
It's crazy to think this was a illegal port. The shipping is in.
Currently at one of the 48 slave ports that was here in the United States of America. This is one of the ones that's unique, however. After 1808, when the United States federal government outlawed slave importation, this area still continued to illegally transport enslaved people. Notice I'm saying enslaved people are not slaves because our language is very important. How we talk about people, usually it has a influence on how we understand them based off the language used around their bodies. The people that we're talking about right here, they was human traffickers. Even before slavery was outlawed, they still was human traffickers. We just used the word slave to make it seem a little more smooth, a little more fluid, man. But as I'm sitting here at Galveston, somebody that's born and raised in Texas, somebody that's proud to be a Texan, I think about how much romanticization and sanitization went in and teaching me about Juneteenth. You know, hey, parenting never stops, man. Parenting never stops. Just like on the plantation, just like you're on the boat, you feel me? Imagine you didn't got captured with some of your children, or imagine you didn't got captured and you got a heart and you on there with some children. You know what I'm saying? We know that a lot of mothers was locked up with their kids, man. It was some youngsters on that. Hey, come back! Come on! But another thought of mine I have right now, man, is that the sharecropping system really was, from the jump, made very easy because we believe that the individuals that were human traffickers and enslavers had the morals and ethics to be able to equitably pay the individuals that was working their plantation, that was used to being entitled to their free labor for so much long. Or for so long, I said so much long. After slavery, after the importation of slaves was outlawed here in America, Galveston became a real unique space because of its location to the Caribbean slave trade ports and all of the quote-unquote secret waterways. So that allowed for them to be evasive around the law and be able to still bring human labor in here at the expense of our humanity just for their little profits. A lot of us don't talk about it, you know what I'm saying, enough, but King Cotton is something that really birthed America into the international economy. As a matter of fact, the powerhouse that America is known now would not be existing if it wasn't for our ancestors that was giving blood, sweat, and tears and free labor to this country to be able to import so much cotton. So when you think about how America became one of the global hegemons, you always have to talk about its in debt towards slavery. It's in the plantation economy, man. I'm talking about after slavery was abolished, quote unquote, because when we say abolished, it's very loose, you know what I'm saying? Very, very loose term, you know. 13th Amendment say the United States federal government shall prohibit slavery except for punishment, conviction, and crime. And I don't think it's ironic. Individuals that are descendants of slaves are most likely to find themselves being convicted of punishment and crime. I don't find it ironic at all. But here at Galveston, we see that this was the loophole of how they figured out how to do all them various ways of keeping us on the plantation and or keeping us in captivity. Maybe through criminality, may it be through the lack of access to different jobs outside of the plantation. Juneteenth became a federal holiday, right? And after Juneteenth became a federal holiday, we started thinking about how a lot of people's freedom in America had clauses to it, specifically Black Americans. Since Juneteenth has become a federal holiday, I think in like 2020, a lot of cities and local communities around the country have adopted the celebration of Juneteenth. I'm born and raised here in Texas. We've been celebrating my whole entire life. But of course, my hometown about like 2.5 hours away from Galveston. So we've been knowing. But I've been thinking though very critically about if General Granger told the freshly enslaved people to keep quiet about their freedom, how did that word really circulate all the way to my hometown? And the reason I'm saying my hometown is because I know that my family members was also enslaved and sharecropped in my hometown of Bryan, Texas, man. Maybe y'all be able to give me some footage to show y'all how we did it in Bryan, Texas when we go down MLK. But I'm curious of how they celebrate Juneteenth around here too. Can you imagine trying to parent kids on a plantation where master feel like he got more authority over your children, but he don't give a damn about their livelihood, but you care more about their livelihood and you ain't got authority over your children? That's something I've thought about throughout my research about the plantation and about how parenting and kinship and love and all that shit happened on the plantation. Yeah, they fixed me, about to go, ready to go. And something too I think about is that in the movie Sinners, a lot of us love Sinners, right? And we see Lil Mary, Lil Annie, you feel me, the little biracial, compassionate white girl, you know what I'm saying there? And I think about my wife and how a lot of individuals had that same perception, you feel me, of my wife that we had in that movie when we seen no girl. Like, she's a white woman, what the fuck going on? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not like stupid that my wife can pass, you know what I mean? But it doesn't negate that she have a whole black parent. I'm talking about a monoracial black parent, you know what I'm saying? But it's something that I always, think about, especially because it's one of the ways that people try to discredit my work or try to trivialize. Still recording though. It's still recording though. Still recording. My son getting in trouble right now.
If you were enslaved during the Revolutionary War, who would you have supported? The Americans or the British? Before you answer, you should probably know that unlike the Americans, the British actually promised to free the enslaved black people who fought for them. Being from the United States, I was often fed this narrative that the American colonists were wholly the good guys and the British and their supporters were totally the bad guys during the Revolution. But what's less discussed is that many black people sided with the British, some by choice and others by force. Right now, I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts at the Old North Church where we find the story of one such man named Cato. Records show that right before the Revolution, Cato was the last person baptized at this church. Now, as a black man, he would have sat up here in the segregated North Gallery with other black and indigenous people who were both free and enslaved. Now, Cato was enslaved by a man named Mather Byles, who was a minister and rector at this very church. Now, Byles was a loyalist, meaning that he supported the British during the Revolutionary War. And as a minister, he regularly preached from this lectern right here. As tensions rose in Boston, loyalists like Byles were branded as traitors and driven out. In 1775, it's even likely that his own congregation pressured him to resign. So when the British were evacuating Boston, Byles fled to Canada, and Cato was probably forced to go with him. In doing so, Cato left behind his wife Zipporah and young children who were enslaved in Roxbury. He likely died in Halifax, Nova Scotia, never seeing them again. But Cato was far from the only black loyalist. In the 1770s, the British promised to free any enslaved person who escaped from the rebel master and fought for them. So while it's estimated that between 5,000 and 8,000 black Americans fought against the British, over 20,000 black Americans served with them. After the war was over, a portion of these people were relocated to Nova Scotia, like Cato. Their legacy is alive and well today. Fun fact, the actor and wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson actually descends from these communities of black Nova Scotian loyalists. So instead of asking who you would have supported as an enslaved person during the Revolutionary War, maybe the better question is, who would have supported you? Now that we've entered America 250, or the 250th anniversary of the United States, there are so many stories just like this that you can come across here in Boston, the focal point of the revolution.
If you ask yourself, well, why the hell this matter today? It reveals how slavery was a key component of the American Revolution. It also gives Black people agency in recognizing how we are positioned within this American history, especially for individuals that believe we are foundational Black Americans. I'll save the spill about how the foundation of America is structured by anti-Blackness and wanting to identify with that as some type of psychosis, and also acknowledging that slavery is not a lineage, it's an institution of power and exploitation and oppression. But I'll say that from the video. But it's important to be able to show within history that Black people have always already had agency, despite what the captors or the historians or the philosophers or the religious, you know what I'm saying, Zeeks, the religious Zeots, you feel me, the religious fanatics said at the time. Many white colonists fought to preserve slavery. And the Civil War was less than 100 years after the independence. So seeing that there were a lot of colonists and or descendants of colonists that were directly tied to people that fought against the British to preserve the institution of slavery, then be faced with losing their slaves. That's the dark history of America. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump doesn't want us to teach these kids about the history of America, specifically when it comes to Juneteenth, the history of Juneteenth. We can champion history of Juneteenth as being a federal holiday, while also acknowledging that it's been different ways that it's been criminalized for us to learn about that history. When I'm in Galveston and I'm having this explosion of ideas, and I'm at the beach, and I'm looking at my kids, and I'm looking at my wife, and I'm also looking at their water. I'm thinking about the rich history that's also ugly and dark that deals with Juneteenth in Galveston, but also deals with the institution of slavery. What I know is that Stephen F. Austin, he's seen as one of the fathers of Texas. He stumbled across Galveston, I think in like the 1820s, 1830s, right? And what he thought was that Galveston was all that Texas had to offer, and thought that all of Texas was like how Galveston was. And me uncovering the ugly, dark history of Juneteenth and how they tried to conceal this, and how General Granger is seen as this, a great figure in history that was telling the enslaved Negroes they were free, but told them to be quiet about it. And then you dig through the archive and you see how different cities throughout Texas, from San Antonio to this city to that city, were actively working to keep the history of Black Jubilee from us. You know what I'm saying? I thought that came out kind of jumbled. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I should start putting this script out, y'all. Let me know in the comment section if y'all think I should start pulling the script out, or do y'all like when I kind of organically express myself, especially when it comes towards history.